Hi, everybody. It's great to see you all, and thanks so much for being here on a chilly Friday, I have to say, where I am. This is our fourth information session for this year for the Victims of Crime Commissioner, and really grateful for you making the time to be with us. This particular info session focusing on the complaint systems for people who are adversely affected by crimes as set out under the Victims Charter. My name is Matt Hall. I'm the CEO of the Victims of Crime Commissioner's Office. I just want to introduce you to Maggie Whitmore, who's the manager of our, I think we're saying compliance is probably the best way to describe it these days, but regulatory strategy is the formal title. Dagmar Jenkins, who is our victim engagement manager. And I will shortly, I'll introduce you to our Commissioner, of course, Elizabeth Langdon, and shortly pass over to her. Just to quickly say before we do so, we want to make sure that everything here today is done in a trauma-informed way. We'll keep that in mind with our conversations and the questions that we ask and the way that we respond. In terms of questions, very happy really for you to jump in at any point with questions within reason. And really keen to hear from you. We learn a huge amount from our engagement with all of our stakeholders, and it's one of the most valuable things that we do is to be able to have those conversations around the way the Charter applies and the challenges that we have and how to make it all work better. So please don't hold on to any questions if you've got things you want to raise or ask for us. So without any further waffle, I shall now hand over to the Victims of Crime Commissioner, Elizabeth Langdon.
Thank you very much, Matt. And just reiterating our thanks to everyone for joining today. Fridays are great days. It's sunny where I am, and I hope you're comfortable for the next 45 minutes or so that we'll cover this really important topic. Before we commence, I'd like to acknowledge that our workshop's been held on the lands and under the skies of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I'd also like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be with us here today. The Victims of Crime's Office would really like to acknowledge, as we always do, the lands and waterways that have been cared for thousands of years, and what a privilege it is for us to walk amongst them. We acknowledge that this land was never ceded and always was, always will be Aboriginal land. I'd be remiss also to not acknowledge the array of lands that many of you are dialing in from today, and encourage you to reflect on the beautiful country that you're on today. I also want to pay my respects to victim survivors and acknowledge the incredible contribution that they often give to us in our work to advocate for them in government, and acknowledge the ongoing strength, resilience and resolve of these victim survivors. Their continued advocacy really drives our work and is advancing policy and law and justice reforms in critical areas where much has been achieved, but there's much to do to improve the experience of victims of crime in the future. As I mentioned, we have several members of our Lived Experience Advisory Group, or LEAG as we refer to them, with us here today, who are victims of crime. I want to acknowledge their incredibly valuable and generous contributions to our work, and particularly today how it's shaped the guidance material that we'll be talking to you about today and sharing with you. And we base all of our guidance and work around trauma-informed practice, which we know you do as well in your work. So I'm pleased that we are joined by some of our group members today, and I want to acknowledge their resilience, their contribution, and thank them for their most generous commitment to making change. It's absolutely fabulous for me and for all of our team to work with them. So we also, of course, want to acknowledge that dialing in there's a range of people and organisations who are committed to improving the experience of victims of crime in the justice system. So many of you will be in different parts of Melbourne, different parts of Victoria, and in different organisations. Today, we're discussing the importance of complaints handling and providing some practical examples for agencies to support what is so important in terms of accessible and transparent complaint systems. These are required under the Charter, so that relevant sections, which most of you will know, sections 19, 19A and 19B. Very clearly, the Charter sets out expectations around complaint systems. And we actually in our own office have recently reviewed our complaints processes to make sure that they're trauma informed, because we really believe in the collective responsibility to make sure that complaints processes are accessible as possible. So today we'll be hearing from two members of our lived experience group, Anna and Christy, about their lived experience of trauma-informed and accessible complaint systems. We'll be providing you with information about your obligations under the Victims Charter. We're going to be discussing general principles on complaints handling and the principles of trauma-informed complaints. And we've talked about questions today, but also these sessions are so valuable when people share their own ideas about what's working really well in their organisation. So don't be shy if you've got something you'd like to share, not just questions, but also sort of reflections on what's working well so that you're meeting your charter obligations. So with no further ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Maggie, who will be taking you through the next parts of the session. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I'm going to talk about the obligations under 19, 19A and 19B that Elizabeth spoke of. But the Victims Charter that's pictured here is a little like a bingo scoreboard or something, is the law which sets out victim survivors' entitlements and rights in Victoria. And it sets out 17 principles which aim to recognise the negative impact that crime has on victims, their families, witnesses and the broader community. It recognises that persons adversely affected by crime are to be treated with respect and provided with information to access appropriate services to aid their recovery. It recognises that victims have a legitimate interest in the response of the criminal justice system to the crime and that they play a role as participants but not parties in criminal proceedings, and also to prevent further harm to victims from the criminal justice system. At the heart of these principles is the truth that it costs nothing to treat victim survivors with courtesy, dignity and respect. There are three types of agencies in Victoria that must comply with the Charter: investigative agencies, prosecution agencies and victim services agencies. I want to briefly mention, as I said, the sections 19A, 19A and 19B, because they're applicable to all agencies and they're highlighted here with the little stars. I'm not sure if you can see that, but you will get these slides as well. They encapsulate the basic entitlement to be informed about the right to complain if a victim survivor believes that the agency has not upheld the Charter. They also set out the obligations for agencies to have accessible and transparent complaint systems, to offer fair and reasonable remedies to victim survivors, and to inform them that they have the right to have the complaint reviewed by the VOC if they are dissatisfied with the response. What we want to explore today is what does it mean to have an accessible and transparent complaint system, and how complaints can be trauma-informed, victim survivor centred and culturally safe. Firstly, I'm going to go through some general principles around complaints handling, and then Dagmar's going to go through what you need to consider to be trauma-informed. Because while having a complaints handling mechanism and communicating this to victims is necessary to meet the Charter obligations, that's not necessarily sufficient. For a complaints system to be effective, there are some guiding principles to consider. Demonstrating a commitment to complaint handling, providing visible and transparent information about how and where to complain, ensuring the complaints processes are accessible and free to everyone, and really considering the needs relating to differences such as race or Indigenous backgrounds, sex or gender identity, cultural or linguistic diversity, sexual orientation, disability, religion, and age, and ensuring that there's no detriment to a person who does complain. It's important to keep in mind that complaint handling systems good complaint handling systems respond to complaints by acknowledging and dealing with the complaint in a timely way, providing transparent information about how complaints are handled and the possible outcomes, protecting the privacy of complainants as far as possible, treating everyone involved in a way that is objective and respectful and fair, and considering and respecting their human rights, and promoting accountability for decisions. And so encapsulating that is that good complaint handling systems use complaint information to foster continuous improvement and ensure accountability. I'll now hand over to Dagmar, who's going to go through the trauma-informed principles.
Thanks, Maggie. As Maggie mentioned just now, to be effective, it's important that complaint systems for people adversely affected by crime are trauma-informed. I'm going to go through 6 principles against which the complaints process can be considered, which many of you will be aware of. And these principles arose from the 2001 work of Fallett and Harris and that of the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA. We develop all our guidance and work at the VOC with the principles of trauma-informed practice in mind. Principles we know are also familiar to all of you. I'll outline some considerations for complaints processes shortly. And as Elizabeth mentioned, we'll share 2 videos about the lived experience of trauma-informed and accessible complaint systems recorded by 2 of our league members, Anna and Christy. And the content was also developed and contributed to by all our lived experience advisory group members. SAMHSA talks about the 4 assumptions, or 4 R's, of trauma-informed care, including realising that both trauma is widespread and that there are recovery pathways, recognising the impacts of trauma, including in navigating systems, responding by integrating knowledge about trauma into policies, procedures and practices, and that's where it's really applicable to complaints processes, and seeks to actively resist re-traumatising people as they navigate those systems. The 6 principles of trauma-informed care and how they might be applied to a complaints process are safety. So the complaints process must ensure physical, emotional and psychological safety for all participants as they engage in the process. Trustworthiness. So integral to that is transparent communication, consistency, both of which build trust between complainants and the organisation handling the complaint. Choice is also fundamental. So individuals are provided with meaningful options and control over how their complaint is managed. Collaboration. So the process actively involves complainants and relevant parties working together in decision making as the complaint is addressed. The fifth principle is that complaints processes should be culturally safe. So acknowledging cultural identities and incorporating peer support can strengthen understanding and healing within complaints processes. And the 6th principle around empowerment can contribute to effective trauma-informed complaints processes through, for example, providing choices in processes, including how communication occurs, so any preferences, the pacing of the complaints process, and other options where people might have ways to make choices within the process. And you'll see that the guidance material developed to assist agencies with complaints, which Maggie's going to share in a little while, has been set out against these principles to assist you in reviewing your own complaint systems. So next, I'd like to introduce the first of the videos we were talking about earlier. And this one focuses on trauma-informed complaints processes and was recorded by Anna, who is a member of the VOC's Lived Experience Advisory Group. Thanks very much to Anna for her work on that video. I'm now going to share our next video, which focuses on an accessible and transparent complaints processes. And this was recorded by Christy, who is also a member of the Vox Lived Experience Advisory Group. And I'd like to also thank Christy for her work on that video. And I'll now hand back to Maggie for the next part of the webinar.
Thanks, Dagmar. what we've done is we've created some materials with the assistance of our league members, and what we wanted to highlight is we've created some guidance for you to use at your agencies to review your complaint systems. As the Commissioner noted earlier, we've just done this with our own complaint system. It's really important to spend time reflecting on your practices and improving your practices. We know complaint systems are often evolving, and they're not a stagnant process. You're always learning from them, and it's really good to have an opportunity to sit back and reflect and focus on what it could be that you could improve. When creating this guidance, we got a lot of feedback from league members around updating it and making it clearer and providing lots of detail about what it is that people want to see in complaint systems. So I urge you to use it to review your systems, and we've, as Dagmar said, we've put it against the trauma-informed principles when thinking about those parts and processes of any complaint system. Excuse me. So we will be providing this to you next week, along with a copy of the webinar and our slides, so you can use it within your agency to have a look and review all of your complaints processes. We've also created this complaints checklist to have a bit of a look to see where it is that maybe there's a principle or something that you want to focus on, like a particular aspect. And as I said, I'll be providing it to you via email next week, so you'll have a copy to share with your agency and use in your review systems. And now I'm going to hand over to Matt. We've allowed about 15 minutes for questions, and I really urge you to put some questions in the chat. We'd really love to hear from you, and as the Commissioner highlighted before, we'd really like to hear some other examples that people are using within their own organisations, good examples we can all learn from. We're all improving all of the time, and it's really good to hear from our colleagues as we work towards improving services for victims of crime. And I'll hand over to Matt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maggie and Dagmar, and to, again, thanking our league members for coming forward and with that really clear and open and honest and informative analysis that they gave us. We're pretty lucky to have that, I think. Now, made the mistake of not having any Dorothy Dixes scattered around the crowd, but would anyone like to ask a question or make a comment? Let us know about any part of your own practice that that aligns with that or which raises issues for you. He says, hopefully. I don't think I can see.
Yep.
Can I? Yes, excellent. Carolyn, are you there? Or did you? It just popped out, or did you say you put something in the chat? I'm not sure. Let me have a quick look.
It looks like there's a problem with the Q&A, so yes,
Yeah.
put it in the chat, please.
Terrific, thanks. Oh, and you can't. Okay, that's. Are you okay to just summarise your question in the chat, Carolyn? Just while we're thinking about that, I'll just mention that Maggie mentioned before that we'd done our own review of our complaints process. It was a really valuable experience, and we learned a lot about. I mean, it was always really encouraging, and I suspect that you will most likely find similar conclusions if you did a similar exercise, is that where there tends to be things to improve, we have people who are really skilled at trauma-informed engagement, whose ideas, whose expertise is really outstanding and provides a great support and service for complainants. It's rarely the individuals that are the issue. If there is an issue, it tends to be how we structure the process, or is there some aspect of how we create a safe space for people in the way that they contact us that we can improve on, communication processes, how and when we're able to respond to things. Those types of issues are often ones that come out when you're looking at it through a trauma-informed lens. I really recommend it. And I'm very happy for any agency, by the way, to get in touch with us so that we can share some of the more general kind of findings that we had from our process, if you think that would be useful in looking at your own process. Now, having a look at Carolyn, we're supporting someone who is considering a complaint with particular police station's response. There is a lot of hesitation going forward with this, and I was wondering what supports within the VOC might be helpful. I'm just trying to unpack that, Carolyn. So you're not a legal service. I'm assuming perhaps a victim of VAP or a victim support service. I'm not sure. So I think my immediate reaction to that is that it would be really good for you to reach out to us separately to talk about how to go forward. I mean, obviously we engage with VicPol a lot in our investigation and complaints processes, which include, both seeking additional information, engaging around understanding what complaints were and what happened on the ground, and also thinking about the sorts of improvements that can be made. I'm very happy to think about how we can facilitate engagement with the police station through the contacts we have with VicPol, if that's helpful. I think probably Maggie, you'd probably possibly be the best person to get in touch with, as I pass that down the back line elegantly.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Maggie.
I'd be more than happy to take that.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So please do that, Carolyn. We'd be very, very happy to try and help with that. Obviously, there's a bit of ring fencing around us in terms of making sure that we keep appropriately separate from each part of the process. But in terms of facilitating engagement and working out how to take the matter forward, very happy to help. Very good.
Sorry, Matt, I was just going to add, I'd always encourage people to give us a call and have a chat if they just have a question around the complaints process, either with other bodies or with ourselves. If they just want to understand the process, we're happy to have those conversations. It doesn't need to be a formal complaint to make contact with us. We're happy to receive inquiries and provide information wherever we can.
Yeah, that applies equally to victim survivors, to those who are supporting them, whether it's in a formal or an informal way. One of our principles, by the way, that both the Commissioner and I are very clear about, is that we will do all that we can to assist whoever comes forward. It might be, in some cases, that's very clear because our statutory role ties in clearly with the issue that the person's coming to us with, but sometimes it won't. And if it doesn't, we'll do everything we can to try and engage you with the right people who can help with that particular issue or other supports or services. That's a really important principle about how we approach things. So it really just underlines what Maggie's saying. Very much trying to make sure that there's a single point of entry for people and that we can walk with people through the process if we need to help them engage in a different process. Yeah. Okie doke. I've got another one here from Kay. It would be nice to give feedback regarding a review of complaint system from this session and how it supported us to improve our systems. Supported us to improve our systems. So yeah, obviously that'd be fantastic, and maybe an ongoing conversation. So it makes me think that our drive towards best practice and recognising that although sometimes we're, obviously part of the Commissioner's role is oversight and compliance of agencies, but as the Commissioner herself made really clear when she was talking earlier, trying to learn from best practice is really, really important, and we want to do that. So I love ideas about that. For example, if we've got a kind of critical mass of agencies who want to rethink or review and rethink their complaints processes and assess them, I wonder if we could get together as a group and think of a way of sharing ideas about that. So we might think about that. I feel slightly nervously that I'm creating more work for Maggie, but she's a person with great capacity for work, and she can't say no because she's standing right in front of us. But genuinely, though, in all seriousness, that's the sort of process that that helps, is when we get together and share our ideas and we're all driving in the same direction. So let's see if we can carry the conversation about complaints processes forward in that way. That'd be really good. Cool. Any other questions for now? And thank you for those who did ask questions. You didn't leave me having to, do some kind of stand-up.
Matt, I just had a comment. If
yes,
I,
Commissioner,
if I may,
you're more than welcome to. Yes, please.
Thank you. Thank you. And look, just picking up on Kay's idea, the materials that we're going to send around next week will provide you with some ideas. But again, if you've got ideas about how we can improve those materials, perhaps Maggie, you could be the contact point again. And if there's a group of people that would like to, you pick them up, have a chat in your organisation. Is it helpful? Is it meeting the mark? What might you be doing that's better than what we've suggested? Or in fact, where are the areas that there were gaps? I think we're absolutely up for that conversation. And as Matt and Maggie have said, the process we ourselves did of sort of thinking deeply about our complaints processes and what we could do better, and what happens in other organisations, in other states and territories, in other places in the world. We sort of went fairly broad and had a good think about it. So really happy, Maggie, if you're happy to be that focal point, I think that would be terrific. Thank you.
Yeah, and I've just popped my email details in the chat so that anybody, and you'll receive it also with the materials when we send it out next week.
Yeah, and certainly, I mean, when I started working on trauma informed complaints processes around, this was around sort of sexual, physical assault in institutions, going back to about, it's 12 years now, 13 years, that's terrifying. It's amazing how much thinking has gone forward during that period. It really is, our understanding of what it means to have a trauma informed complaints process is so different than it was back then. And a lot of institutions have grappled with that issue and produced better processes. So it's a rich area, I think, for discussion. And it makes an incredible difference. We all grapple, by the way, with the issue that the better our complaints process is, the more people come forward, and we need more resources to handle complaints. But at the end of the day, the net result is a benefit to everybody and a more efficient process anyway. So yeah, cool. All right. Perhaps we wrap things up. What do we think, Maggie?
Yep. If there's no more questions, although I just urge people, if you have a question later on, pick up the phone and give us a call or email us on I've put two email addresses in the chat. Just reach out. We're always happy to have a conversation. We're always happy to support complaints processes. It's never easy, and they're really complex, and they're not always straightforward, and we're happy to have the conversation and provide any advice or support we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Happy sunny Friday. Hope the rest of your day it's hard to imagine it could be better than the last 40 minutes, but if it could possibly be, I hope it is, and look forward to seeing you next time, and particularly also look forward to hearing from you again as we go forward. See you all later. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.